Let's be honest, I mean, O's history isn't very well recorded. Outside of accounts from older community members, occasional quotes, and the odd old YouTube video or stream VOD, archives of past greats are sporadic, and it can be hard to get an idea on just how some of those past greats really affected things when they were active. It's hard to argue that the top players of today are the best we've ever seen in terms of raw ability. The progression has been outstanding, but in terms of their legacy, how do they stack up to the greats of the past? That's something we've been debating for the last few months, and here, we're going to try and rank the top players of the past and present based off of their ability, longevity, and how their plays impacted the community. When looking at each player, this is the criteria that we've put their achievements against. Their peak skill, the player's effective skill cap based on how good they were at their peak performance level, relevancy over time, the amount of time that the player has been active regularly, how long they've remained relevant in terms of the gameplay, and how that impacts the community during their activity. Appearing in top player voting and the top 20 videos each year is a prime example of that. Player versatility, how versatile the player is in their skill set, and how many abilities that the player is known to be good at. And tournament performance, if they've taken part in it of course, how effective and prolific that player was in tournament playing, how they affected the tournament scene with what they did. Many arguments were had, many painful omissions were made, and lots of blood was spilled, but we finally managed to settle on our list. Now, if it missed out your favourite player, that's fine. The subject's very wide, and there's a lot of amazing players that could make a list like this, but that's the power of opinion, right? Besides, this is our list, and our list is great. Without further ado, here are our choices for the top 25 OS players of all time.
For a period between mid-2010 and mid-2012, the Japanese mouse player Silvia was widely heralded as the best user of the playstyle. Silvia was notable for his outstanding hidden and hidden double-time accuracy on the toughest maps of the era, as well as for his reading and alternating skills, being prolific enough to cement his spot at the top of player rankings during his activity. He was also an excellent tournament performer, taking part in Japanese tournaments and the first 2 OSU World Cups, leading his country to a second place finish.
Another player who made a name for himself in the same era, Koga was an extreme monster who became infamous from around 2010 to 2012. He was known for his incredible accuracy on intense stream maps, setting unmatched scores at the time with either double time and hard rock that are still high in the rankings to this day. He also has some unique flashlight scores in his ranks, including the first full combo on Ascension to Heaven with hidden hard rock flashlight, which is one of his more iconic scores. Not to mention that it was unheard of at the time. Koga remains active to this day, and still shows that he has the ability to match the performance of his most active years, whilst still being able to compete with the best players on the old hidden double time stream maps.
GN is very well known in the community, and for good reason. He has a habit of regularly posting scores unlike any other. With his best known skill being map reading, he is one of the very best players on low AR maps. That alone has led him to set many unique scores. He's been active since 2011, and he rose to prominence in 2015 as his easy mod plays began to spread within the community. easy mod full combos on the likes of Freedom Dive, Cry Thunder, and more, and the first ever full combo on Shotgun Symphony Plus, and holding the #1 score on every DJ Pop tag format for a period, among others, are proof that GN is a player who deserves a spot on this list.
Although this player may not have been prominent for as long as previous players on this list, Toy has left a huge mark on the community in innumerable ways. Initially starting in 2013, he became infamous from early 2016 as a consistent and prolific tournament performer. For a time, he was a mainstay in both community and World Cup tournaments, where he really left a mark. The fact that he has the highest number of badges for top level tournaments in history after only 2 years proves that fact. Outside of competition, his versatility and complex reading ability means he can be found near the top of pretty much any map he pushes his efforts towards. Recently, he's been leading Project Loved, and he's been putting in effort towards improving the game that he's helped shape via his gameplay.
With his decade of activity, Doomsday has been one of the most active players in the OSA community. Starting in 2008, in the span of just 2 years he was already considered top 5 globally, setting scores like the first ever FC on Banned Forever. In the following years, he never stopped playing, cementing his spot as #1 UK for 6 consecutive years until 2015. He's a player known for his reading and streaming abilities, which are still on par with players of the present day, as shown by many of his scores, such as his FC on Fury of the Storm. Doomsday certainly doesn't lack when it comes to his tournament skills either, as he's shown in almost every OSA World Cup in which England has participated, as well as various community tournaments, some of which he's even hosted himself, aka the Corgi Cup series. All of this, Doomsday surely deserves a spot on this list.
The jewel of the USA during his 5 active years, SapphireGhost was a player who was known as a full-on hidden main during a time where it wasn't quite as common as it is today. Active from around 2010, his consistency with the mod was untouchable at the time, and he often played hidden sudden death as a regular combination. He didn't even realise he had sudden death on during his famous run on Distorted Love Song. His hidden Nightcore plays in the PPV1 era are also worth noting. In tournament play, he was essential to the USA OSU World Cup team at the time, and he actually went and won the first 2 North American tournaments on the trot. On top of this, he was widely loved for his soft, friendly demeanour, and he was always open to helping out those who seeked him out.
Nico's a bit of an anomaly. He's one of the most iconic players of the early 2010s. Starting on that very year, he quickly made a name for himself with a variety of flashlight scores, many still remaining at the top of their scoreboards to this day. However, he's best known as one of the most accurate players in the world, with hidden hard rock scores that are barely matched on a multitude of complex maps, primarily set between 2013 and 2015, like Helix and Kakuzetsu Thanatos. Both are widely considered to be two of his best scores. He's not been active in any way for the last 2 years, but his previous sporadic appearances were heralded with insane plays. Perhaps we may see a return in the near future.
Most people know HappyStick because of his social media presence, like whether it's his very popular Twitch streams or his involvement with the OS World Cup staff team. As a player though, he's actually one of the oldest and most consistently successful veterans of the competitive scene. Originally starting in 2010 under his old username, Awoken, he rapidly rose through the ranks and he became known for his speed and his crazy passes with double time, most notably his plays on the Pretender and Near Distant Future. As time passed, he became one of the best in the aim department, keeping his competition at a very high level for the remaining 7 years. He's also taken part in almost every OS World Cup, winning it in 2016 with the USA team. As a personality, his live streams and presentation have helped build up the OS streaming community we see today. With HappyStick now semi-retiring from OS to focus on other things, the mark he's left is going to be felt for years to come.
When it comes to the subject of climbing up to the top, the route that Index took was a different one. In an era of HDDT and HDHR dominating the top end, Index rose up very quickly as a hard rock only main, showing that you didn't need to be a hidden player to hit single digits. He started actively playing in 2012, but became well known in the beginning of 2015 with many scores on aim-intensive maps, which he was able to play with ease, and his infamous hard rock FCs on Dragon Force maps, most notably The Last Journey Home, which was at the time the highest PP score of all time. This play was unprecedented at a time when the highest scores were usually hit in double time. Even if he isn't really active anymore, he comes online from time to time and sets many interesting DT scores, proving that he didn't lose his skill one bit. Even though his highest reign was relatively short, the ripples from that are still felt as a shock to the system, and he is remembered fondly.
Another player who's been around the block a few times in OS, dusteyes has maintained his position as one of Germany's very best since 2012, when he was considered one of the fastest players in the world. His insane speed allowed him to set many unique scores on high BPM deathstream maps with DT. As time passed, he's become a very versatile player with a wide-ranging skill set, and is often seen at the top of really intensive maps. He has also been a pillar of the German OS World Cup team for many years, showcasing his consistency on many community tournaments as well. He continues to compete at the highest level, and he doesn't show signs of falling off anytime soon.
Very well.
One name that evokes plenty of enthusiasm from older members of the community is Dungeon. Between 2010 and 2014, he was considered one of the very best, looked up to by the majority of the player base for his exceptional overall skill at the time. Other than being an excellent hidden double time player, and one of the very first to consistently full combo AR 10.3 maps, his performance in OWC 2012 and 2013 made light of his insane consistency. Even now, despite going inactive in 2014 due to military service, many of his number 1 scores remain unbeaten, and many others still compete with nowadays standards. For the most part, he is now inactive, but occasionally makes an appearance. Certainly a player who has left his mark on OSU's history.
OS certainly has its fair share of speedy players, but few were as dominant as sayonara-bye was in his prime. Previously known as Dragon Human, and being around primarily between 2011 and 2015, he had his competition cut out for him at the time, but it wasn't uncommon to see him at the top of hard maps with the only hidden double time score. Once PPV2 went live in 2014, he skyrocketed up the ranks and he cemented his place among the elite. Like Dungeon, he did go inactive due to service, but he made a short return in 2017. He'll always be remembered for his demeanour and his words of motivation. If you fail, do a frustration, and after frustration, hard work again.
It's no secret that some of the very best players Osu has ever seen have also been some of the youngest. Faxe started out in 2014, but his meteoric rise up the rankings came from seemingly nowhere in 2016. From there, he began to set score after score after score until people began to wonder if he might end up being the very best player. He was originally known for his fast single tap and aim on intensive double time maps, like his hidden double time FC on Mafalda's Pensamento, and as time passed, the rest of his skill set started shining through, with insane scores on technical reading maps as well as low approach rate reading on easy. Faxe does it all. On top of that, his tournament performance is impeccable, and it only seems to get better over time. The sky is the limit for him in his current form.
He's gone by many names over the years, whether it's HDHR, My Aim Sucks, or maybe his original name, JJC1070, but Yaong is a personality that is both admired for his likeable nature and respected for his ability to SS just about anything on a whim. Starting in 2012 and being known originally for his hidden hard rock accuracy and his unique DT scores. Since then, he's quickly gone on to be one of the most well-rounded players in the game, generally admired nowadays for his aim on highly spaced streams with hard rock, and his accuracy, which often sits as the top score of whatever mod he's playing on the map. He's no stranger to high tier tournament play either, since both in community tournaments and the World Cups, he's been more often than not the primary carry thanks to his insane accuracy and his tremendous consistency, and he's got the badges to back that up.
There are players that have helped in making an underappreciated mod viable in competition, but Firebat92 did that for an entire playstyle. Starting in 2012, he's better known to many as AngelSim, and was already well known in the community for his incredible aim and streaming ability. However, with time he became more of an all-around player, setting scores left and right on a variety of maps, ranging from high BPM death streams and aim-intensive maps to more technical and unranked ones. He managed to earn #1 globally in late 2016 as a mouse player. This is the first time since 2011 that someone with that playstyle has achieved that feat. His run to the top as a last goal before switching playstyles will always be remembered as a turning point. He currently plays on tablet, but remains one of the top players in the world, further proving his immense amount of skill.
In the time between 2011 and 2014, tilever was arguably the most consistently accurate player in the game. Between this period, he was a mainstay in the top rankings of the vast majority of maps at the time with his very high accuracy hidden Hardock scores, which eventually earned him multiple runs as the #1 player globally. From aim-intensive maps to rhythmically tricky ones with hidden double time, any map he was capable on, he could probably get a 99% accuracy run on it, and many of his performances still rank upon the best axe scores ever set. His activity has been sporadic in recent years, but his ability still remains as the benchmark that accuracy players strive to reach.
One player part of the crop of fast improving Korean players, Reimu started playing around mid-2012, and in the span of just 1 year, he reached the top of PPV1's ranking system. His peak, however, came a few years later when he was banned in late 2013. He continued streaming, playing offline, and honed his mechanics, becoming one of the fastest players, with scores like Ridori DT and a #1 on time freeze at the time, both set offline. During that time, he was one of the contenders for the global #1, along with Hvick, and after his unban in June 2015, he pulled off a top 10 spot in PPV2 in a very short amount of time. Despite RSI preventing him from playing consistently, he continued to play sporadically, still setting amazing scores.
One of the players who really pushed the envelope of high-end plays in the early 2010s, Nico was ranked among the absolute best of the era. Active between 2009 and 2013, Nico frequently challenged the top scores of the hardest maps of the era, with plays on maps that were simply out of reach for everyone else. He had a complete skill set. He was known for his single tap and streaming speed, whether it was on high BPM streams or mechanically complex old maps with double time. He was also one of the first players to be able to regularly full combo AR 10.3 maps, and he was also an excellent hidden hard rock player, being able to compete with the very best of the time. Even though his active time was relatively short, he was, and still is, considered one of the best players ever. He returned briefly in 2017, and he's shown that he still has the ability he was renowned for, and he demonstrated that with many unique scores on the old maps, as well as scores like NFC on Booze Hound with hidden double time. No doubt, when he was at his best, it was a sight to behold.
Rossville is truly a jack of all trades, a veteran of the rhythm gaming scene that's not only a beast in OS standard, but also in 7-key VSRG games. Initially active between 2010 and 2011 under his old username Sprosive, he was a well-known player and liked mapper of the era, but it was after his return in 2014 that he became infamous. He's a brilliant alternator and technical player, and his ability to play uncommon patterns and unusual rhythms, along with his insane finger control, allowed him to set some of the most impressive scores on old maps with hidden double time, as well as some mechanically intensive ones like Dopamine with hidden. On top of his stellar reading, he's arguably the best tournament player in the world, with many of his tournament appearances earning him plenty of MVP performances, especially in the 2015 and 2016 OSA World Cups with China.
Hvick has been an institution in high-level OS for a very long time. Starting out in 2009 but becoming prominent in around 2010, he's always been considered one of the best all-around performers since then. He made a name for himself as one of the top hidden hard rock players around 2012 when the mod began to become popular, and he continues to compete with his versatile skill set. He's one of the original big tournament beasts with a large collection of winners badges that stretches as far back as 2010 with his victory in the first OS World Cup for Team Taiwan. Even though his ability has decreased over the years, he's still one of the best hidden players, especially on slider heavy and technical maps. And on top of that, he's a truly evergreen player who hasn't lost much of his skill set over the years, and he's still definitely considered among the very best in the world.
There's arguably no other player that's currently revered as much as Ferrucci is. Starting out in 2010, he improved unbelievably quickly until he was competing at the very top of the game in 2012, being among the first players to FC maps like Airman and the Big Black. From there, he kept improving, and as the years went by, he was considered the very best player of the time. When PPV2 came out, he regularly broke the top performance score and pushed what is considered possible in the game for the next 2 years. He was a prominent and gifted player who was capable of pretty much everything, from fast streams and high-end aim to more technical and reading-heavy maps. He's also showed his vast skill set in tournament play, culminating with his 2014 OSA World Cup win for Team Japan. He's also been inactive as a player for a few years now, but remains active as a mapper, continuing to push what is playable via his very unique mapping.
In the modern OS landscape, Raphus is a name that is synonymous with top tier play. His mechanics are simply extraordinary, and his high level of activity means his fans have always got something to cheer about. Becoming active in 2013, he rose to the top 50 in a very short period of time through his aim abilities and his accuracy on high BPM maps, which is something that's continued to rise and improve from then on. His speed just keeps getting better, and he pushes what's possible in that regard at the moment, but improvement is a common thread with Raphus. Every year he seems to substantially improve his play, adding new skills and improving his consistency. In the last year or so, his tournament abilities have stepped up massively, and he was a key player in Poland's 2017 World Cup victory. Since 2015, he's been in the top 5 players globally as a permanent fixture, becoming one of the best double time players of all time with multiple runs as the #1 player in tow, and that momentum just doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon.
There is no player with a catalog of achievements as extensive as Wolf's. Previously known as White Wolf and now currently known as Black Wolf, he's been a veteran of almost 10 years, with activity throughout that entire time span. He's a player who's accomplished basically everything achievable in the game, from stellar HDHR accuracy to his capability of playing obscure maps with mod combinations never before seen. He's the definition of an all-around player. He's taken #1 globally multiple times in score ranking, PPV1 and PPV2, and has broken the PPV2 score record twice, one of them being set on an ancient 2009 map. His consistency in tournaments is simply off the charts as well, as shown by his wins in a multitude of community tournaments, including the first one to ever award a badge and an OS World Cup win as the MVP in 2017. Wolf is also undoubtedly the best old map player, with many unique #1 scores on a variety of difficult maps ranked before 2013. And on top of this, he's entertained the community with his widely popular YouTube videos and Twitch streams for many years now. His longevity and continued top-level ability and versatility has cemented him as one of the premier legends of the game.
There hasn't been an era where Hvick, also known for a period as Snow White, hasn't been relevant in some way. Starting out way back in 2008, he's been a solid player from then on. Before becoming the legend we know today, he was widely known as one of the best hidden and hidden hard rock players back in 2010, with scores that only a few were able to match. His legacy is long and winding, appearing in every top 20 yearly vote whenever he was active, including being voted as the best player as late as 2015. Hvick is arguably the best hidden double time player of all time, and that's in a mod bracket that's incredibly competitive. The sheer amount of top scores he's set with the mod on harder maps is unmatched, and his consistency with the mod beggars belief when you watch him live. He's so good at hidden double time that it overshadows his abilities with hidden hard rock, his reading on older maps, and his tournament consistency, where he's barely put a foot wrong on the big stage. He's broken the top PP score many times over the years, pushing the boundaries of what's deemed possible with the mod. He went mostly inactive from 2016 onwards, but Hvick's legacy lives on. Safe to say, a return from him would shake the foundations of the competitive scene, but only time will tell.
Well, this one's hardly a surprise, is it? There's been plenty of players that have come close, some that have competed well with him, and some who are even better than him in some aspects, but for the majority of OS's existence, CookieZ has clearly been the best player overall. Started out in 2009 and became well known in 2010, he jumped onto the scene on hard maps with people wondering who this CookieZ guy was. But before long, he climbed the ranks until reaching number 1, and basically stayed there for however long he wanted it. He seemed to be capable of just about everything, and was able to FC maps that were simply out of reach for everyone else at the time, from infamous Dragon Force maps by Lesja, to his insane back-to-back FCs on Freedom Dive. After being banned in late 2013, he took a 2-year-long hiatus and came back in mid-2015, setting unique scores on maps that no one else had been able to FC. After his unban, he kept improving and pushing the limits of mechanical gameplay, and needless to say, taking top leaderboard scores was a breeze for him. With numerous tournament wins, more iconic scores than we can even mention, and breaking the top PP score record over and over again, he's never fallen behind the pack once since 2010. I mean, come on. You watch him nonchalantly smash records and pull off plays deemed unrealistic regularly when you watch him stream. No doubt, CookieZ is the greatest OS player of all time.
何にもなくなりました。月日が経ちました。遺跡を漁りました。気になるものありました。それは幸せの目の化石。賢い頭で調べます。どうやら雲の上に幸福快楽あふれているようです。
And there we go, that's our list. Judging this sort of thing with such a huge scope, it's always going to have some variables from person to person, so feel free to let us know how we missed your favourite player down below. The reason why we wanted to create a list like this was to draw attention to some of those past greats who have put a lot of time and effort into shaping how the game is now, and to be a bit of a revival of sorts about what they did. Like, a lot of the older names don't really have a lot of archives around, so big shout outs to any of those guys and anyone that's helped out with the game. We've all put a lot of time into. Things are still going strong in the play-in scene, so I imagine we'll be seeing some new faces that can make a list like this in the future. Good times, man. So thank you very much for watching and take care of yourselves. Bye bye.